Hello everyone, this is Lord Kurnion, and I am here with the round 5 of the Colonial Carnage GT that took place in Williamsburg, Virginia, probably about a month and a half ago. Sorry for the delay on these things again. Life happens, and really didn't want to rush them, wanted to do a good job. As I was saying, in Game 2, this round 5, is probably probably one of my two best games played at the tournament. So, without further ado, let's kick it off. And this round sees me up against Vampire Counts, which once again has Lore of Undeath. So this is my second time in a row facing Lore of Undeath. So we're going to see if I learn anything after getting my ass kicked by Jacob Brandon. Anyway, here's my army if you haven't seen it before. Here's my opponent's army. He had a level 4 Necromancer, Lore of Vampires. He had a level 4 Necromancer, Lore of Undeath, and this one had a 4-up Ward save. He then had a level 1 Vampires, who I think he had a scroll, but obviously that is irrelevant against me. He had a White King BSB. He then had another White King with a Great Weapon and the Night Shroud. He had 2 solo Karen Wraiths, which I imagine is a whole lot scarier for armies that aren't demons. He had 50 ghouls with a champ. He had 2 units of 30 zombies with not a champion. You can't take champions. They have standards and musicians. He had a unit of 6 Crypt Horrors with a unit champ as well. He had a unit of 2 Fellbats. He had a Corpse Card, and he had 34 Graveguard with full command and Banner of the Barrows. So looking at this list, obviously, this is my second game in a row, like I said, facing Lore of Undeath. I had learned last game what Lore of Undeath is capable of, and I was a little scared of it. So I was going to see if I could take what I learned from the first game and apply it to this game, which what I basically learned in the first game is Operation Bum Rush. I need to get into him quickly. I need to get into him with everything I have all at once and basically try to dictate the combats as best I could. The problem I had against Jacob Brandon, I felt, is I tried to be too cute with the tactics, basically. I was trying to stall the big unit and get my Bloodthirster in for a deep strike. Problem is against Lore of Undeath, they can just summon a couple of Screamers and then, you're kind of screwed. So against this one, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to bum rush everything in together, combine my Bloodthirster and my units of Bloodletters all together, all hitting the same units at the same time, wiping it out in one round, and then overrunning into the next one. So we're going to see how well I did that. So going into deployment, going left to right, my opponent has his unit of Crypt Horrors. Next to them is his unit of Ghouls. Behind that is his bunker of skeletons of zombies rather. In there he has his level 4 Undeath and his level 1 Necromancer. Next to the ghouls he has his unit of Graveguard, and in there he has his level 4 Vampire General. He has his BSB, he has his other White King with the Night Shroud, and he has 2 Karen Wraiths, so that's taking up the entire front rank with that in the full command. A lot of my attacks are going to have to go into his characters, unless, of course, I get some flank charges, which is obviously my goal going into that. Anyway, behind the Graveguard, he has his Corpse Cart. Behind that, he has some Bats, and next to the Corpse Cart and the Bats, he has another unit of Zombies. So here's how I lined up across from him. I have my Soul Grinder all the way over here. Once again, positioned in such a way that I can move up pretty aggressively and maybe land a Flame Template on that big unit of ghouls, because that's just way too tempting a target to not take. Next to him, I have a Skull Cannon. Next to the Skull Cannon, I have another Skull Cannon. Sorry for the blurry picture. Behind the second Skull Cannon, I have my my Skull Throne. Next to that, I have my bigger unit of Bloodletters. Next to them, I have my smaller unit of Bloodletters. Behind the bigger unit of Bloodletters, I have my Bloodthirster. And then on the back of the board edge, I have my first 2 deployment drops, which are... I drop these guys pretty consistently there in all 5 games. My 2 units of Furies, I just deployed middle of the board, back of the board. I did it against everyone except for Jacob Brandon, which I still deployed in the middle. And they were just my first 2 drops, being that they are so easy to redeploy. And over here on this flank, I have both my units of Fleshhounds working in tandem. Obviously, these guys want to whip around the flank and see if I can get through that unit of zombies and into his backline as quickly as possible. Or maybe offers a couple counter charge opportunities, or combo charge opportunities, rather. Cool. So I actually won the roll-off for first turn, so I was obviously not going to pass that up. So I move everything up full steam. Soul Grinder moves up here on this side, a little over his march range. So he obviously can't shoot, but not that it really matters. Both my skull cannons also move up and line up shots where they can see both the crypt horrors and the corpse cart, because obviously I want to take out the corpse cart first. And then, if I happen to take that out with one shot, I still have an angle to shoot at the crypt horrors as well. So that was the plan there. Here, everything just kind of moved up full steam. Really nothing too fancy about that. War Shrine also moved up in position. Bloodthirster kind of moved up a little bit more conservatively. He's kind of keeping everything in the BSB range, or in his leadership bubble, in case I roll Winds of Slaanesh. I want to try to minimize the damage as much as possible. My Furies moved up behind both my units of Bloodletters into position where they can chaff next turn. Over here, these Furies did a similar thing into position where they can chaff, and both my units of Dogs both moved up. Magic was largely uneventful, so we go into shooting, and sure enough, first shot, aims at the corpse cart, hits the corpse cart, wounds, and I rolled exactly 4 wounds, so I dropped the corpse cart in one shot, which was really lucky and really fantastic. Second one aims at these. I end up getting lucky again. I rolled a hit both crypt horrors, and I end up doing 3+ wounds to both of them, so I drop 2 of them, which is nice. And that's at least, he's probably going to be able to raise these guys back without a problem. But if he does raise them back, he is, if he tries to raise them back, basically he is, it's just taking dice away from casting Lore of Undeath spells, which is worth a cannonball shot in my opinion. We go to Vampires turn 1, and sure enough, he did not move at all, because he is kind of bunkered where he is. And he does indeed cast Invocation into Heck to raise this unit back up to full strength, which is kind of what I expected out. But doing that, I was able to stop all of his Lore of Undeath spells, which was fantastic. So moving right along into my turn, this was a quick game. I move my unit of Furies that were behind the Bloodletters up to chaff, basically in position where I'm in a single line wide. So I'm chaffing up both his unit of Ghouls and his unit of Graveguard. That was the plan there, kind of preventing him from charging. I also positioned them in such a way, if you can see, that it is basically impossible for his unit of 20 zombies to march out of arc of sight of my Furies. So the Furies are set up where they're blocking right now, but it's really, really easy for them to just charge out of the way into his unit of zombies off to the right, to then clear a path for my other units to charge in. So that was the goal there. I think that worked out pretty well. Over the rest of the movement, my Soul Grinder moved up, only moved up 8 inches to try to land a flame template on those ghouls. He's kind of hanging out there to dry. The Crypt Horrors can obviously make that charge. It's a very easy charge. But I just kind of looked at it as, although they have poison attacks, Soul Grinders are tough, especially against Strength 4. We saw in Game 2 what the Soul Grinder was able to withstand against his both his Beasts of Nurgle and Plague Bearers, both of which have poison attacks. He was able to weather quite a storm and actually take very few wounds. So I was pretty comfortable taking this, unless he rolls really lucky. My Soul Grinder should still be standing there at the end of the turn. And then my Bloodthirster's obviously in general range of him, so even if I am taking a break test, it's very unlikely for him to crumble completely. Both of the Skull Cannons also move up to now shoot at the Crypt Horrors again, figuring that if I can kill 1 or 2 of them when he charges into my Soul Grinder, which is basically, almost guaranteed, he's then going to be out of easy invocation range, so he's not going to be able to raise them back, which is obviously advisable. Both my units of Bloodletters obviously move up full steam again. My War Shrine moves up as well, and make sure to pick an angle, as you see where he is now, where he can, if the unit of Bloodletters in front of him fail the charge, he can then still get around the unit of Bloodletters, moving straight ahead, then wheeling to complete a charge into the Ghouls or the Graveguard if I want to. So that was the plan there. Other Furies move up behind this unit in case I have to chaff again for whatever reason. And then over here, these guys move up again full steam. So here's what it looks like at the end of the turn. This was actually funny. At this point, the tournament organizer was walking around, and he saw this table and took a picture, and he posted a picture of it online, saying something along the lines of, "This looks like an oh shit moment for the vampire counts." And I feel like it kind of is. Yeah, I think I'm playing this a lot better than I played against Jacob Brandon, and really using my speed and the fact that I have combat advantage to really kind of put pressure on him early, because it's turn 2 and I'm already setting up some pretty crazy charges. So we go into shooting, and one of my cannons misfires 4, so it just can't shoot this turn or next turn, which is fine. The other one is able to hit 1, and it kills 1 guy. So that's cool. So Vampire's turn 2, he does indeed take that charge into my Soul Grinder. And then over here on this side, he moves the bats up to chaff, and he moves the zombies over, which is fine. Yep, so the zombies over on the side actually were able to get out of arc of sight. That shows the final position of where they went. He ended up casting Invocation of Nehek on them, Van Hill's Dance Macabre on them to move them another 8 inches, which is not what I wanted, but I ended up failing to dispel, so he's able to get out of my arc. So that's why they ended up all the way over here out of arc of sight of my Furies, which is not good. But then he ended up helping me out because his next spell he cast Raise, I forget the name of the spells. I don't know the lore of undeath names. He cast the one where he gets to raise monstrous infantry. So he raised a unit of Vargheists. He put them right there, which is perfect for me. He raised them in such a position where, obviously now my Furies can charge them to get out of the way, which is fantastic. So, I mean, I was a little unlucky that I was unable to stop Van Hels to keep his unit of zombies in range to where my Furies can charge them and get out of arc, but then he turned around and helped me out by raising this unit so I can still charge my Furies out of the way, which is great. He then, with his last couple dice, threw it at Gaze and a Gash on this unit, which once again I'm completely fine with. So yeah, I mean, I didn't have any dice left over anyway, but I mean, I probably would have let this go, even if he did cast it. So we go to combat. He did like a wound or 2 to me. I didn't do much to him, but basically exactly what I thought would happen ended up happening. I was testing on a pretty high leadership. I think I took another 2 wounds from instability, and I stuck. So my Soul Grinder has 3 wounds, has like I think 2 or 3 wounds on him at this point, and yeah, otherwise things just kind of stand. So he bounced, which was the plan. And I believe he cast something on them. He might have cast Hellish Vigor on this unit, anticipating a second turn charge. So, Demons of Chaos turn 3. Without further ado, so this is obviously a picture at the end of my turn 2. So obviously his models are not exactly where they are at the end of his turn, but I wanted to do this to show all the combination of charges that I did. So I started off with a charge of my Bloodthirster into his ghouls. I figured that's obviously a very good thing, but to do that I need to get, obviously, my Bloodletters to help. So one of my units of Bloodletters needed like an 8, the other one needed a 9. So like I did in Game 1 versus the Bretonnians, a really good way to stack your odds when you have 2 somewhat unlikely charges, like just under 50-50 charges, you just take both of them. So I charged both these units into the ghouls as well, figuring that one of them should make it. I then charged the 1 Skull Cannon into this unit as well, in case both units of Bloodletters failed. I'll just get extra impact hits, which is just going to add to combat res. I charged the BSB, or my Herald rather, also into that unit, and even if the unit in front of him fails, he'll be able to wheel around. That was the intention of putting him at that angle last turn. Charged my Furies out of the way against his Cryptar, or against his Vargheist, which was the plan. And then this unit, this cannon charged the flank of his Cryptars that are currently fighting the Soul Grinder. So they made it there, and then this combat happened. Yeah, so the bigger unit of Bloodletters that needed an 8 ended up making it, so that was great. So I ended up putting my Bloodthirster, my Herald, and my bigger unit of Bloodletters into the combat. This cannon ended up making the charge. The second cannon automatically failed. Oh yeah, and then these guys, both units of dogs charge the units that are chaffing them, respectively. The other unit of Bloodletters, they failed to roll the 9 they needed, which was, didn't really matter. The bigger unit of Bloodletters made it, which was what my intention was anyway. So the other unit of Furies moves up to chaff the Graveguard, so that they can't just charge past everything and into my second unit of Bloodletters, which are kind of left hanging out to dry there. I'd rather sacrifice the Furies, and if he makes the overrun into my Bloodletters, that'll give me my turn to basically reform after everything and then combo charge his Graveguard. So we go to combat, and it's as messy as you can imagine it being. First of all, the Vargeists cleared up my Furies, which was fine. I did that combat first intentionally, so that way my Bloodthirster can overrun into the Vargeists and kill them after dealing with this. And then in this combat, I did something like 35 wounds or something all told after impact hits and thunderstomps. Yeah, and I mean, he did a couple wounds back to me, but it wasn't enough to save the unit. He ended up crumbling the rest of the way. And everything overruns. These two overrun directly into his bunker with his level 4 undeath. And my Bloodthirster overran into the Vargeists, which was, like I said, the reason I did the combat with the Furies first, so that he could make that overrun. Over here, these dogs killed the bats. The other ones killed a whole bunch of zombies, took a couple wounds in return, which was fine. We go to Vampires, turn 3. So he does take the charge into the Furies with really not much else to do. He really doesn't have a choice at this point. He then raises a new unit of Vargeists back to the... actually, you can kind of see it in this picture. Back to the... you see them in the corner of the picture here. They are to the right of the picture right now. You can see one guy in the corner. So that was really all he was able to do in Magic. Winds weren't that strong. He was able to raise that new unit. Then we go into combat. And yeah, I swing for the fences here. I send my Herald and the Shrine into his level 4 Undeath, and I was able to kill him. I send as many attacks as I can against his level 1 Necromancer, and end up killing him as well. And then I send a couple of attacks at the zombies and kill a couple of them. After crumbles, he still has a sizable amount of zombies left, but both of his characters are dead, which was obviously good. And then here, yeah, between impact hits and my Soul Grinder attacks, I'm able to finally kill the last couple of Crypt Horrors. The combat had been grinding on, and I think by the time this combat started, I think he only had a couple of guys left. So after impact hits and everything else, he just crumbled the rest of the way, and I just reformed everything to face towards his Graveguard unit. And my Bloodthirster dealt with the Vargeists, and these guys killed the Furies. The Graveguard killed the Furies and overran into the Bloodletters. They ended up making that charge. So they made that charge there. So we go to Demons turn 4, and I pile everything in. The unit of dogs that had been fighting the bats charge into the flank. 2 skull cannons charge into the other flank with the Soul Grinder clipping. The Bloodthirster charges into the rear, and they had already been fighting the Bloodletters to the front. So we go to combat, and this is what it looks like after combat. Yeah, I did like 30 something. I think I did 30 wounds to his infantry. Ended up killing his White King as well with a killing blow, which was nice. And this is what he has at the end of combat before crumbles. So obviously he crumbles the rest of the way. And at that point, we just decide to call it. In the back of the board, my Herald and my Bloodletters are able to mop up the rest of the zombies as well. So all he has left is his one unit of Vargeists. And yeah, they're obviously not going to be doing that much. So the result of the game is a 20-0 for obvious reasons. Like I said, I think this is one of my better played games. I benefited from a very good matchup. He really didn't have much to answer me, and having already faced Lore of Undeath once, I knew how to handle it, and I think I did a much better job of it. So overall results for the tournament, I ended up 4th best general with 72 out of a potential 100 points. I missed a total of 28 points. I dropped 8 to Malasar in round 3, and I obviously got 20'd in round 4. But then I was able to recover in round 5 to jump back up to 4th best general. Best general scored 85. That was Jacob Brandon, my round 4 opponent. He lost his first game 15-5 and then 20'd the remaining 4 opponents to finish with a score of 85, and that's the best battle score of the tournament. So good job submarining to him. Interestingly enough, the first round of this tournament was the only game that he lost with that army. He then went undefeated. I think he had like 1 draw at U.S. Masters on his way to U.S. Masters victory, which was pretty crazy. And then overall, I was 5th place. I lost a couple of points on paint because my army was a little bit rushed. Some of the models looked okay, but then my dogs looked like crap. So did my Bloodthirster, was really poorly painted, and so was my Soul Grinder. So I lost some points for those for painting. I didn't have a display board, which also hurt me because that was a couple extra bonus points. Which, I mean, it's all stuff that I need to work on in the future. Next time I enter a tournament, I didn't have display board again for Brawler Bash, but basically that's something I need to rectify for future tournaments. I need to make sure I have a display board, I have a name tag, everything is painted consistently, nothing is like, half-assed basically. And that'll help my overall placing, I think, quite a bit. So anyway, that's the end of this report. Hope you enjoyed this series on the Colonial Carnage GT. Any comments or questions, please post in the comments below. And thanks for watching, guys. Have a good one.